think we're ready to call the February meeting of the Housing and Community Development Commission to order. We'll go to number 2, consideration of meeting minutes from our January 2022 meeting. And I'll say as far as that goes, it was particularly difficult discussion for the transcription, the person doing the transcription to summarize, and I thought they did a great job, whoever they were. I'll send my compliments along to them, which they'll hear because they're doing the transcription. We will, however, need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
So moved. Is this on? I thought they were all hot, I guess.
They're all on. You'll just have to make sure you speak
You
closely. and
might
I'll
be a
turn
bit
up the
far away
volume.
from it. Mine's
I'll
good,
pull it
right?
closer. So moved. Okay.
Second.
There you go. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Right, motion passes. Item number 3, public comment of items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to comment on items that are not on the agenda? All right. Item number 4, discussion of a recommendation for an amendment to the Iowa City Housing Authority Administrative Plan. This is a topic that was a recent addition to our agenda that Brianna sent out very recently. Hopefully everyone was able to get that and get the updated agenda. Looks like what we're going to have here is a staff presentation that I think Tracy is going to be giving, right?
Okay.
And we'll probably have some questions for Tracy, and then I believe we have public comment on this agenda item that we'll go to after that. So we'll start with Tracy.
Okay. Like I said, I'm Tracy Heisch with Neighborhood Development Services. So back in early February, we received a request from Center for Worker Justice regarding our policy, the Housing Authority policy regarding extended absences for those that are the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So in our policy, under the administrative plan, there's a policy, it's called absence from unit policy, that allows tenants to be gone for 30 days. And many of you are familiar with the Housing Choice Voucher Program. It's a program where, based on income, we pay for a percentage, could be all or a portion of someone's rent. Tenants have to qualify. And so in our policy, if someone requests to be gone for more than 30 days, then we go by the policy about the reasons. And for over 30 days, it has to be a reason typically beyond someone's control. Prolonged medical care, hospitalization, a death in the family. So basically, it's basically unforeseen and it's beyond your control. So we received a letter, and we did have a conversation with Center for Worker Justice and some of the immigrant community, and they make the argument that some families, that 30 days is hard to do. Especially for immigrants who have to travel overseas to see their families. They have to have the choice between, do they stay extended periods or they risk losing their voucher? And they request that we amend our policy, basically that we either move that 30 days up to 60 days, or we add a reason that visiting family outside the United States once a year being allowed reason for travel over 30 days. So the federal regulations let us do that. As a housing authority, we can allow someone to be gone for up to 180 days. And that 180 days reason is typically for like incarceration or for placement in a nursing home, that you can't go over that. If you go over that, no matter what, we have to terminate the voucher. Housing authorities are allowed to choose a smaller period of time as what we consider brief absences. And a lot of housing authorities use that 30-day benchmark. And then, like I said, we have exceptions for those unforeseen circumstances. And their request is allowed by federal grant. We can extend that period, but it comes with a trade-off for granting those absences. And that's why we wanted to have the public debate, have it go to HCDC, make a recommendation to council, because we do have 27,000 applications on the Housing Choice Voucher waiting list. Of those, 1,300 meet our preference criteria. They live or work here. And our current wait list for those 1,300 families is well over 3 years. In calendar year 21, 98 households requested a leave of more than 30 days to travel overseas. And the average amount of assistance that we pay is about $556. So based on 98 households, the Housing Authority pays about $54,000 for each month where the unit was not occupied by a member of the household. So we kind of have to balance the needs of the entire program by those waiting on the waiting list to travel for various reasons. And so we totally understand reasons that families, especially immigrant families who have to travel for long ways, want extended absences, but we're trying to balance that with the needs of the entire program. So the Housing Authority believes the current policy to be fair, and with those reasons why people have to take longer trips. We do understand that in some cases, council, HCDC might want to recommend. We would recommend if council and HCDC wants to amend our policy, that the recommendation by Center for Worker Justice that we just go up to 60 days with the same, if you want to go over 60 days, it's the same reasons that we have with the 30 days. You know, it's beyond your control. Just because we don't want to put staff in a position where we have to say, it's okay for this family to be gone for 90 days because they haven't seen their family in such a period of time, or it's okay for this family to only have 45 days. We as staff don't want to do that. So if HCDC wants to make that recommendation, we like the recommendation of moving the 30 days to 60 days. So City Council discussed it. They wanted to refer it back to HCDC. They want a recommendation from you guys by March 1st because that's when they're meeting again. So they would take your recommendation. On March 1st, they would meet. And if they agree, they would tell the Housing Authority, they'd tell staff to make that amendment. And then I think they would approve it at their second meeting in March, and then it would become effective. You only need one council meeting to amend the policy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much an overview. And if you have any questions, I also have Steve Rackus here from the Housing Authority if you have specific questions about how the policy is implemented.
I did find myself wondering how many of the 98 requests were granted, how many were denied. I didn't know if you had that.
I think they were all granted, weren't they?
Yeah.
Those were the,
Sorry, excuse me. Yes, I don't want to yell. Yes, the data that we compiled was actually families that had requested to travel who are still active participants in the program.
Mm-hmm.
And the 98, 2021 was the biggest year, but I think that number was the requests from 2019 coming forward. And those 121 requests were granted.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another 80 families that are no longer on the program that we just didn't have time to compile data on.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, council met Tuesday night, we did this yesterday, and here we are tonight.
And as far as the two options that CWJ laid out in the letter, either the blanket permission for visiting immediate family or going to 60 days, you clearly expressed a preference for the going to 60 days. And I read that letter, and my first thought was to prefer the other option, though you give some compelling reasons not to. And I think I came to the same position via a roundabout way. I found myself wondering about that idea of immediate family, like who would count as immediate family under that policy. I have a sister who lives outside of the country. She probably would count. A parent would probably count. But then as you move out from there, would an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or a half sibling or a nephew or where you would sort of sketch that out. So I worked my way around to also favoring the 60 day option over the other option. I think. Is it that you're worried about? Is it the sort of making judgments about the number of days? That's sort of what you expressed tonight.
staff would prefer, like I said, we don't want to have to get into justifying who travels, how long they travel, when they travel, who all counts, what counts, because then we're not being fair to everyone, because we're like, okay, we allowed this family because of this reason, we didn't allow this family because of that reason. We'd rather just have the longer period and basically saying anything over and above that longer period, it has to be due to some unforeseen circumstance. Mm-hmm. Plus, there's also, once you start getting into 3, 4, 5 months, that means we're paying rent on a unit that's not being occupied. And
And not, also not occupied by somebody else who needs it. That would be, something to consider also. I imagine that's in part of this. And the cost of this, if I remember correctly, was somewhere around $54,000 that we pay in rent during the time that the families aren't in there. But, so in terms of the order of, how they make the decision based on who it is, that doesn't enter into it for me, because this is a request aside from an emergency request. So father, mother, somebody in the family gets sick and they want to make a trip to go see them or help with health care, that would be granted under the emergency request. And that can be for a longer period of time, correct? Up to
Yeah, it
30,
just has to be approved, yes.
90 days, right?
We would review the request, so if it'd be over 30 days, you'd have to state the reasons why, and then we'd look at that.
This would just be the kind of trip I used to take home to Iowa when I lived out of state to see my family every year. That's the trip we're talking about, the trip, but it takes much longer for people who live outside of the country, so I get
So
it.
is the recommendation that we're supposed to provide to council whether or not the 60 days is for voucher holders who are traveling outside of the United States, or is it for any voucher holder?
Staff would prefer any voucher holder, just because we have a hard time. We administer policy for everyone on the program, so we don't want
Right.
to call out.
Okay.
Right.
So it's everyone, so everyone would be granted up to 60 days.
And I might also ask, and this is, I think, more a question for Erica and Brianna, more of a question about the scope of the city council's request to us for a recommendation. Are they asking to approve one of these two options or neither of these two options, or is it an open-ended request? If we have a discussion here and that for whatever reason this commission decides that 120 days is in fact the best option, can we recommend that?
Do you want me to answer? Sure.
Yes.
What the council wants from you guys is, one, to feel yes or no whether they feel that the current policy needs to be modified.
Uh-huh.
If yes, then what is it that you recommend it's modified to? And that's a recommendation that goes to council.
Okay.
Well, I'm in favor of modifying it. I think we're in a world of this. I would refer to this policy as something left behind. It's one that needs to be updated with our changing world. And I come from a background of human resources, and this is not new to me at all. People needing extended time away from work. It doesn't fit into you get 3 weeks time off. And I just believe in the world today with people living outside, their country that they were born, or where in a far distance away from their family, that it's something that we can do. And, I realize that during this time, we don't want these apartments empty, and I get the city's paying rent, but I also have to weigh the cost to the city as being $54,000 compared to the whole city budget. It's a drop in the bucket as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to be in favor of modifying it. I know that, so.
Well, I have a history of property management, and I think, and I don't remember the number of days, but if a unit is vacant for a certain number of days, the landlord protector insurance that the owner of the home carries will not cover a claim. So I would want to check on that. I think, so I wouldn't go, if this committee recommends, I would not go past 60 days.
You
But-
wouldn't go past 60 days?
No.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to approve a change to the Housing Authority's administrative plan. I think it's reasonable. Families can get approval for longer out-of-country travel. The 98 households that requested it were approved, and with a substantial outlay of subsidized assistance. And I just think that the 27,000 plus households waiting a seemingly long time for assistance may think the requested change isn't equitable to them. So I'm not going to vote for approval of a change.
I would have to agree with a previous comment. What I had noticed in my time in HUD housing is that we had a lot of people on that wait list, as you're referring to the 3-year wait list. And I do think that moving from 30 days to 60 days may take resources out of our finite resources. However, I would like to see the second portion of that passed in regards to allowing the visitation of the family out of state, or sorry, out of country, to be a reason to go past that 30 days. But I don't think that we should go from 30 to 60-day allowance.
As I am an immigrant, I know the importance of visiting friends and family overseas. And usually we don't do that every year. For obvious reasons, it's very expensive to travel to Africa, for example. For a small family, the cost probably over 10,000, and we cannot afford to do that every year. We do that every other year or every 3 years. And there is various reasons to have that frequent visits. For example, we need to preserve our customs, our values, our traditions, to pass them to our second generation. So traveling is very important for us as an immigrant. Also, it is very difficult to travel. We cannot do that every year. For example, the closest airport, it is O'Hare in Chicago. And it takes us 4 hours to get there. And then from there, we aboard the plane for 14 hours for a different destination. And then from there, we go to our home country. And most of us, we are not living in the capital city. We are living in the States. So we have to take a bus to our final destination. So the process of traveling overseas, it takes us about 2 days. And then you need like 3 days to switch your biological hour because it's different time zoning. And then when we came back also, we have to repeat the process. So we need probably a week just on traveling. For that reason, I support the 2 months motion. And I would like everyone on the commission to join me on support the motion.
I guess I want to hear a bit more about this idea of, if a person is gone for 2 months, that the city is paying for unoccupied. I mean, I see where you're going with that, and it makes a certain amount of sense. At the same time, I mean, as long as the intention is to return, it really seems like that person is still housed by the city. I mean, there are all kinds of reasons people leave their unit. They're 24 hours in a day. They work for 8 of them. The unit is not unutilized, for those 8 hours. They're going to come back at the end of that day. A person goes out of the country for 2 months. They're intending to come back and return to the unit. I mean, the unit is still housing them. They are still a housed person, and if they come back and they don't have the voucher anymore, then they're still a person in the community who needs housing. So I guess I'm not very sold on the idea that it's costing the city some amount of money.
I didn't think for us it's the cost of the money. It's basically those 1,300 folks that when we're looking at the reasons why, that's why we recommended our policy is that if you look, we have 1,300 people that are in precarious housing situations. They call daily to find out where they are in their waiting list and when they can come up for a voucher. And to them, they meant 2 months for 98 folks, 100,000. That's about 16 families that could be pulled off for the waiting list for a year. We kind of look at it, we balance that. That's the only reason. So, and the only comment I had, if you do recommend that you keep the 30-day policy, but you allow family, we still would like a time frame, because otherwise you could go up to 6 months. So that means we're paying for rent for someone who's only there half the year, so we still like the time frame. So we like the 60 days that seem to be fit most requests. And then we'd go back to our policy about beyond control. So that's the reason why staff made the recommendation they did.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No, please.
No, because I was going to ask Tracy what the motions are, but if you have something to add, I want to hear it before I do that.
We just
I won't remember, Tracy, so I'd rather hear.
We just had a staff recommendation that if you wanted to modify the policy, this is what we recommend, but you can recommend anything you want.
Okay.
Yeah, and from the Housing Authority perspective, we prefer objective criteria. Because, and I'll give you the example, and this is the best example I can give you, is our waiting list and why we use objective criteria. Just this past week, I received an email from a gentleman who's 61, just moved to the area for the university hospitals. He has cancer, is undergoing chemotherapy, and in his email, he stated that he may not be alive in 3 years. And I had to tell him on the phone that because our preference category is elderly families, disabled families, and families with children under the age of 18 who live or work in our jurisdiction, then it's date and time of application, that we can't use most in need criteria to move him to the top of the list. So I had to tell him, the list is 3 years. We have other families, homeless with kids in the car, and we have to tell them you're still 200 on the waiting list, because the Housing Authority, myself, I don't want to be making determinations, is the liver transplant, the chemo, the 85-year-old, who's most in need? So it's better to have, this is our preference category, date and time of application. And so that's why I think, we're supporting the extension. If that's what you want to do, to go from 30 to 60 with the criteria, then we still are operating on an objective basis.
Do we have any other questions for Tracy and Steve? Yeah, I think we'll go to public comment. So if any members of the public have comments on the agenda item, step over to the table.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mazar Saleh. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Worker Justice. Thank you for giving us the time to come here and speak. I'm not going to repeat what I sent you. Everybody have the letter, I guess, but I just going to respond to some of the, the comment that has been made. Speaking about the policy, today I bring out from HUD what the policy HUD saying, which is a federal. Normally we see federal policy is way strong than local policy. HUD policy, I'm sorry, I have to get my eyeglasses. HUD policy said not more than 100 consecutive calendar days. But they said that the AHA must establish a policy on how long family may be absent from the assistance unit, which is, in this case, the city of Iowa City made it 30 days. But they said something else. A family may be absent for a period of less than 30 calendar days without notifying the housing authority unless the absence will interfere with the scheduled annual recertification or annual unit inspection, in which case the family must call and make approach arrangement. And which is Iowa City of Iowa City have it, which is 30 days. But it say when an absence will be for 30 calendar days or more, the family must notify housing authority in writing as follows. Planned absent. If you're already planned, you're absent. The family must provide 14 calendar days advance written notice of planned absent. Example, vacations, which is they don't have that. If you want vacations, they reject your application, okay? Here I say vacation, stay in caring facility, care of a desk family member. And they saying family member. They did not say household member. Because my mom is my family. I consider my mom in the family. But they saying household here. That means the household who live in the assistant unit. And the HUD say family, they're using family, they never use household. If I will pass this to all of you, you can read it. But it says vacation clearly. And the Iowa City Housing Authority say hospitalization, death of the household, or illness of the household, or any another reason deemed necessary by the Iowa City Housing Authority. So I think if the federal rule said not more than 80 days, but you can do it for vacation, I think they should at least put vacation there. Because in recent application that has been filed to the city of Iowa City, and the person is here on the audience, he said that I'm traveling because I have not traveled for the past 3 years, and my dad, my mother and my father are sick. They are over 80 years of age, and they being sick, and I have to go and care for them. My wife does not drive, even if she's the one who moved, because they said somebody have to be in the unit. If he stayed and the family went, his wife cannot do the job over there. So that's what his reason. His mom and his dad is sick, and they are over 80 years old, and he never saw them for the past 3 years. And his application has been denied. I don't know, illness of the family member, his mom and his dad. And if they need proof, they can bring proof. There is no problem from the hospital there. They can write a letter and bring it. But that's what happened. The request has been denied, and he doesn't say that. He said, for the HUD, he say just 30 days. I will just give you that so you can look at it. Can you give it to them, please? And to be honest, really, for the people who have family in this, in this in country, even not like in Iowa, this is really something good, for the people that they have. And I wish if my family, all of them around me, I don't have to spend a lot of money to travel. I don't have to go every year or do all this. I can go to vacation to Miami or Mexico or something like that. But really, we're going to spend time with our family. In Sudan, for example, I'm from Sudan. I'm going to talk about that because last time during the council meeting, also somebody from Congo, he talked about the same thing. When we go to Sudan, as Mr. Nasser said, the airport in the capital, that's the only airport we have. For example, my husband from East Sudan, and my mother from North Sudan. When I go there, to visit my side of the family, so my kids can know my mom and know their first cousin, it takes us a lot of time to drive and go there. And also, as he mentioned, just to go from here to Sudan, you take 4 hours from here to the airport, or 5 hours. After that, 14 hours flying, and you get to Dubai or Qatar because you don't have direct flight. And from there, you will stay for the connection 14 hours, sometime overnight, sometime one whole day, 24 hours, and travel again 4 hours to go. 2 days gone, just on the road. And after that, just going from the capital to go somewhere. We don't have really developed streets that easy you can go, or we don't have airline in between. So we was a week or two just driving to visit each part of the family. I really think that we need this, policy to be changed so we can make our community feel welcome, especially immigrants in the community. And I don't know, can I ask you a question, Steve? When this policy has been created? How long?
The oldest administrative plan that we currently have scanned in our system was approved by council in 2003.
Okay, how long is that?
And the plan language that exists right now in the plan, it's the same language.
Sure.
And I believe it was probably in the administrative plan when the Housing Choice Voucher Program was created. there used to be a certificate program. There's been several different tenant-based rental assistance programs, but the Housing Choice Voucher Program, I believe, was like in the mid-'80s, late '80s. So that's been in the plan probably ever since we've had the Housing Choice Voucher Program. I don't believe the reg, and I didn't get a chance, the reg was actually included in the packet. I did not get a chance to look on the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations to see when that particular part of the federal regulations was updated at all. I really don't know, but it's
Long
been in
time.
our plan, long time.
Sure.
It's been in our plan since at least 2003.
That's what when I hear 20 years ago. The community today does not look like 20 years ago, believe me. You know, we have more immigrants, and I guess the people who have, used to work in another number of organizations like Becky or Marianne, you know that, like, we have more immigrants coming in right now. If we went back, whoever created this policy in the past, he was not thinking there is a lot immigrant will be here and they're going to be needing to go to our vacations. Whoever created, they were thinking about people in America. No one go like 60 days to visit, Virginia or Miami or Chicago. So that's how this policy has been created. But given the fact that nobody really thought there is some people doing that. And to be honest with you, how do you know that even the people who are from this country, they go for vacation? How do you know if you add all the vacation up, it's not making more than 60 days? For example, maybe I can go to Virginia on the summer and on the winter, is spring, another time excuse another week, and if I add them together, it will be more than that. Just because this is consecutive, we don't want to approve it? It's still many people, I'm sure, they will be out of their assistance unit somehow more than 60 days, but it's not consecutive days. And that's why I just really believe should be amended, really. And another thing, another project governed by HUD, like Pheasant Ridge. This is also have the same rules by HUD. I called Steve from Pheasant Ridge today, and I asked him what his policy. He said, yes, he understands that the federal is not more than 180, but he also can create his own policy. I said, yes, I know that. How long is your policy? He said, 2 months. I asked him one question, why are you giving people too much? And I know Pheasant Ridge, maybe 80% is immigrants in Pheasant Ridge. I said, why you give them 2 months? Why not 1 month? He said, because now I know those people, and I know this is important for them. Most of my tenant is immigrant, and I get to know them closely. That's why my policy is like this. So I think if as a project governed by HUD can do it, we can do it too. Speaking about money that you spend, and I know that there is a lot of people on the waiting list. I'm going to tell you, I have 3 people living in the car right now because they are homeless. I know there is many people who came new to this community. They are sick, they have cancer, they have a lot of things, but they are waiting. I understand that. Not only one person call you, but we have many, many situations. We know in this community are suffering, but we always tell them they cannot prioritize nobody on the top of the waiting list. We know the rules. So I don't think we can use this as an argument for this. But if another project can do it, we can do it. And the city spent some time, money for I cannot recall it now, but many things that we just spend money to make people feel welcome. So please spend our money to make people feel welcome. And I really urge you to change this policy to 60 days without, requesting any absence, without permission, requesting permission. Why? This is easy for the immigrants. People, when they write that application, some people, they don't know how to do it. They are immigrant and they don't know how to write sometimes in English. If they didn't, maybe they don't do it the right way, or maybe they don't know the policy. Everybody, when they get the rejection from the housing authority, it just tell them, we regretted that. We denied your application. And they state that if you need to travel like if you need to travel with more than 30 days, you should do it by permission. And they never stated why, like house hospitalization and all the things that they have it in their current policy. That's people confused. Oh, they said that because I have to request it, and I requested and they denied it. So just please, we don't want like people to go through this, and I'm gonna like 100% or 99% of the people, when they leave all of them together from the household, the father always come back before the 60 days because of his job. They don't want to lose their job. They just waited and collecting all the vacation so they can use it at the end of the day. Like for me, at the Center for Worker Justice, I don't use my vacation. I work hard all around the year. Even if I'm sick, I will come, just to work so I can have all that vacation. I can use it when I travel during summer with my kids. So 98%, I swear, from the people who leave all of them at once, the father will come back because of his job. But the kids and the mom still go around. They make a plan. Like when my husband goes with us, he will say, we're gonna visit his family first. And we go and do it, and my kids and I stay, and my husband come back, so he have to work. So he can pay our rent. I don't have Section 8 right now. But I used to have it too, but we was doing the same thing when I was having some Section 8 as well. Please, make those people feel welcome. And, amend it to 60 days without any permission. Thank you. And we have a lot of people who want to speak.
Do we have any additional public comments?
Yes, there is a lot of people who would like to speak.
Hi, my name is Lata De Mello. I am an advocate and I work with victims of domestic violence, sexual assault in Asian and Pacific Islander communities, but in marginalized communities as well. The work we do is addressing the needs of the community, not just serving them for their cases involving gender-based violence. And one of the things that I can overhear from all of you is unfortunately, the racism that's embedded in how we issue our comments or on policies. So if you say something like, oh, it happened in 2003 without looking at the history of what happened post 9/11, these were policies that came up post 9/11. If you say, well, there are so many people waiting for housing, so we will just shuffle people around, so some people will still be unhoused. Some people will still be on the streets, and we're okay with that. And that's a huge problem. So I would like you all to think about what racism really means, what soft or nice racism means, what it means when it comes to becoming a stain. Policy becomes a stain on the Iowa City character. And that really reflects on all of you. So it's not about, well, we don't have people if you're not around, as Ms. Sully said, it's not like people are going off and it's not you paying, it's taxpayer money, by the way. So it's us paying into that. And it's us paying people who are committed to assisting people who do not have much. That's part of the whole system that we should think about. And this is Iowa City that claims to be so progressive. So City Council really needs to take that seriously. So if you're saying that, oh, we pay when people are not around, and as Ms. Sully said, people might be traveling for a week somewhere, coming back, or spending a whole lot of time, which might amount to 6 months. You are still paying for it, and when you say you, meaning we. So please consider this. This is not even asking for more than 60 days. Personally, I would have urged a whole lot more, because I think this is what housing justice should be. We should be allowed the freedom to come and go when we want to have the space for us to consider a home and not say, well, talk about housing justice or social justice in Iowa without considering this. So I hope all of you will take this seriously. There are a whole lot of people who have come here who are from places like those, spaces that they have made their home, and it's important not to neglect the others who are not housed, but to think about what housing would mean in a city like Iowa City, not to deny housing development that really is important, affordable housing that goes beyond HUD. Thank you.
My name is Jane Murphy. I'm a 43-year resident of Iowa City. I'm simply here tonight to stand in support of the 60-day travel. And to me, it's just a no-brainer. Yeah, the rules are there. The avenue goes forward. So just do it. So thank you very much.
I'm going to take my mask so I can speak a little better. Hi, everyone. My name is Fatima, and I'm here as a daughter of an immigrant parents. I just want to say I moved to the United States when I was 3 years old. That was 1999. Now you guys all know my age. In 2013 was the first time I went to Sudan for 2 months. And then I went with my whole entire family, and at that time we were on Section 8 housing. 2015 was the second time, and that was my graduation gift, and that was, we went all of my family, and that time we were on Section 8 housing, I think. And we stayed there for 2 months also. The third time that we went all as a family was in 2019, and we went for my cousin's wedding. And luckily, the country was in the revolution. Not luckily, a lot of people did die in that revolution. But the airport shut down, we were able to stay longer for my cousin's wedding. When you said, I'm a business major, so when you said those numbers, I thought about it. I'm like, okay, so it's $57,000 a year.
54, I think it was 54,000.
54
Per month.
Per month.
Per
Okay.
month.
No, I think that's
That was the year.
Oh, yeah, for each year. Yeah, for each month, sorry.
Each month. So the per unit cost for the entire program the per unit cost for the entire program. So, some people were paying full rent, some people
were paying half.
So the per unit cost was like $556 per unit, per family, per household. So then that's 1 month. So 2 months obviously would be like 100 and so on.
Correct. So then the question is down to, is this burn worth it to the city? That's pretty much the question comes down to. And I'm going to give you reasons why I personally think it is. One, families that are on Section 8 housing tend not to be able to afford the traveling. So it costs about $1,200 per ticket, depending on the season that you go with, and you have to play around the season. Usually the best season tickets that you can get is between June and come back the beginning of August. Those tickets are around $1,200. So if you're a family about 5, you're already paying around like $5,000-6,000. You need spending money over there in Sudan is actually really expensive. I know a lot of people don't think so, but they need like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. So these families are already spending like 3, 4, 5 years already saving this money to be able to go to Sudan or whatever country they are from, to be able to spend those kind of money and be able to afford that kind of vacation. They also have to think about their bills here, because the water doesn't stop, the electricity doesn't stop, the rent doesn't stop. So these families actually don't travel often. As a whole family, we travel 3 times for my whole life, me living in the United States. Now that I'm older and I can afford and I'm going to work, I go more often. I'm doing that. My mom goes more often. My siblings have not went to Sudan ever since 2019 was the last time they went. So these families don't all go traveling together, especially when the kids get older, because the moms now can go travel and leave them here. The father can go travel and come back here. So the unit is technically not vacant for the whole time. That's one. 2, it's really important for the kids' development to go back home. It's really hard growing up in America, being Sudanese. Sometimes we are too Sudanese and sometimes we are too American. there's such a identity crisis issues that every immigrant kid that goes through it, and it's really important for development when they go there and they learn about their culture and they learn about the things that they are kind of seen. They're looked down upon in here because they don't understand the culture here. So when they go back home and they feel like they're welcomed and they feel like they get a sense of belonging, it's really important for the development of kids. That the kids that are American citizens, they do come back here, they do work here, and they go to school here. So it's really important for their development. And lastly, if the Iowa City truly is intending to do a better together for 2030 and integrating all the immigrant communities, this is a one sign of them to be like, hey, this is the way of saying you can go spend 30, 60 days in your home country and come back and you're still welcome here. And also another question, well, it's not a question, is how many of those people on those waiting lists would also be affected by this policy change? How many of those people are actually immigrants that do travel back home that would need those 60 days? Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments?
Thank you for the chance. My name is Ismail Al-Nur. So the people you just talk about all the points they have, so I'm here just to support the 60 days. So as the people, mostly immigrant people here, they mention it, how that process of travel goes and the time is taken. I think the 60 days is the most minimum they can do and arrange that travel. And also the point I wanted to point about the people is most of them is not going to travel in the same year, maybe every 2 years, every 3 years, the other people mentions. Also, I have many friends. Also, the point of rejecting the request. So even one of my friends also he said he have like the 7 years he didn't travel, but they reject his request. So I don't know if there's like specific rules to follow it until your request to be accepted, or so anybody have to follow a specific rule in the as in the rule here, because as the Madahir said, most of the people I think they don't know what the rule exactly say, but they have to write. Okay, just write a letter. They can write the letters, but they don't know exactly what they can write. So unfortunately, they can reject it because out of what the guy saw. So I just supporting the 60 days. I think that's a little bit going to be affordable for most of the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will be translating.
أنا طبعا من ضمن الناس، أنا بعيل الفاميلا الأسرة بتاعتي، ومن ضمن الناس اللي قدمت أنا لي 7 سنوات ما شفت واحد.
He said, I'm the household member. I'm the only one who working and paying for my family, but I haven't went to Sudan for 7 years.
And request عشان أعمل 2 months ورفضوا الريكوست بتاعي.
And I apply to go now after 7 years, not leaving the country, and they denied my request.
ليه ما مشيت سنوات؟ لأنه التذكرة غالية. أنا قاعد أنتظر بعدين إنه أبوي وأمي ناس كبار فوق 74 سنة.
Why I did not go during the 7 years? To be honest with you, because I don't have money. And I was just saving during this time. My father and my mother is really over 70 years old, and they are very old. I need to see them.
Yeah. And I want to talk about something also that أنا عاوز أعقب على كلام الجبال إنه قالوا. في حد جبال هو قال إنه 20 سنة. قال في الرقم بتاعه أكتر السنة اللي فاتت في 2020 كان كتير.
He said, I just want to comment on one of the comments that one of you said about last year, I think you said on 2020 you have a lot of requests for vacations, people leaving. That's what you said?
Yeah, I believe in the memo, the 98 families were the requests that were made 2019, 2020, and 2021.
and the most request was in 2021.
Pardon me?
A lot of requests you receive in
I
2021.
believe, that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
we know that data.
Because that is
Yeah,
COVID-19
but-
defected.
Yeah.
لانه في الكوفيد 19 عشان كده الناس كانت محجوزه لفتره كبيره جدا وهم ما سافروا، ده السبب اللي خلى النسبه انه تزيد.
He said even we noticed that on 2021 a lot of people request to travel because 2020 was COVID-19. The airport were closed. Nobody traveled in 2020, and some of them they did not even travel in 2019. That's why we saw like just going to the airport, they find a lot of people in the same from Iowa City, all of them in the airport traveling to Sudan. So that's why you have that number high, but that doesn't mean it's gonna be like this.
هتشوف النسبه في السنه دي الناس المقدمين للجهاد هتشوفها اقل.
He said you're gonna compare that this year. If you compare it, you're gonna see it like way less than 2021 because most of the people who won last year, most of them are not gonna leave this year.
Yeah, sure we're gonna live it this year. And I have question برضه comment بالنسبه هو قال لما الناس تسافر انه قبل في ناس حيطلعوا من السكشنات كده، هو لما انا اسافر شهر واجي راجع والقى شالوا مني الفاوتشر بتاعي معناته زاد كميه الناس الموجودين في الهاوسلس.
He's saying basically somebody said earlier, all the costs that they cost when the people leave and how much they're gonna pay during the absence. He said that I think we are not making like the homeless and better because the same people that you terminate them from Section 8 because they was staying there more than 30 days, they will come and become homeless. And also he said that, the time that it take for application to fill out his butt as a Section 8 person, sometimes it take more than 2 months for that person to find a process. By that time they are here and there is a vacant anyway that calls the housing authority regardless if they are on Section 8 or if they are not. And, you understand it or I have to repeat it? Because he just like saying you are increasing, you are not solving the problem. You're putting new people on Section 8 on his spot, for example, because he's being terminated. And you're beating somebody else.
Yeah, I don't think you need to repeat. I take it the point is that you're simply shifting around who's getting the voucher, and there's still, in either case, a person who needs housing.
Yeah. Yes, I think that, yeah, exactly. Thank you.
I want to add something. بالنسبة أنا من ضمن الحالات إنه أنا جيت هنا أولادي صغار، أولادي ما بيعرفوا أبوهن ولا جدهن ولا بيعرفون.
He said I came here when my kids was really young. And now they all by 7 years old. Like if somebody was 7 years, now they are 14. And they never saw their grandmother and and even they don't know them. That's what he said. Yeah.
And my wife and I يعني أنا وزوجتي الاثنين بيكون أي واحد من حتة تانية. يعني أبوي من جهة وأمي من جهة تانية.
He said like my wife and I, both of our like from different region on Sudan. So when we go there, of course, we have to visit both sides and that take long.
Yeah, and برضو أنا بركمان إنه حتى يعني 60 day دي ياداب تكون هي كويسة يعني بالنسبة للرجال. فلاحظي إنه زول بيقعد 7 سنوات وهو ما بيرجع 7 سنوات، أنا قاعد 7 سنوات وما مشي. ياداب ريكويست ده ما فيه يعني عدالة بين إنه زول شخص يقعد 7 سنوات ويقدم لشهر بيقولوا إنه ما يعني ما.
Exactly. Yeah, I just believe that there is no, this is not fair for people like 7 years not seeing and they're going to lose their Section 8 because they want to go and stay more than 30 days. Most of the time, I just want to take my kids and go there, and maybe I will come before the, before the 60 days, but at least my family can stay there for longer. But, for me to come back, it will be maybe little more than 30 days, but it's not quite 60 days. So, yeah.
Actually, it's not 30 days because travel يعني أنت في السفر بتاخد لك قريب 6 يوم ولا 7 يوم. يعني الريكوست 30 يوم لكن أنت ما بتلاقيهم في 30 يوم.
Yeah. I guess same thing that I said earlier, the travel time, plus, the travel inside the country, and the travel time take more than that. By the time I really calculate how much I spend, it will be less than 30 days. I spend it with my family. But, yeah. That's what he said. Anything else?
No, I can add if you have time. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Charlie Eastham with the Center for Worker Justice Board of Directors and also the ICCSD School Board. Just want to make a couple of points, I think. One, in terms of funding that's been mentioned here, we haven't considered, or I haven't heard mentioned, that the participants in the program continue to pay their share of the rent while they're traveling, while they're absent. So the examples given in the memo, a month's housing choice voucher assistance for the 98-something participants, totaled $54,000 or so. Those participants also paid close to $30,000 in rent from their own pocket. And I think, frankly, that was mentioned by one of the other speakers very well, I think. And I think it's something you should definitely factor in to your thinking tonight. The other thing is that it occurs to me that the federal government actually provides for 180 days of absence from a rental subsidized unit in their regulations of the HCV program. So as a school board member, I pay attention to what all the regulators that are involved in district programs have to say. And I would say, as a member of this community, I think you should pay attention to what all the regulators in the program have to say too. And the federal government's giving people permission to be gone up to 180 days. So I think we'd be very careful in in local decision making if we decided to reduce that number of days. The other thing I think I want to close with is it's very clear that we're looking at a cultural and considerations here that were not before us 20 years ago, and that we have an opportunity, as people have said tonight, to be clear in that this housing program, rental housing subsidy program, is intended for the betterment or for the support of families, and that's how we should administer it. And I think adopting at least a 60-day modification of the absence period is certainly in order, as well as potentially considering a longer period too. So thank you very much, and I'm sure you'll reach a good decision.
I spoke to
I think
Erica
you had
before.
someone on the phone, right, Mazahir?
What?
You had someone on the phone who I think wanted
Yes.
to speak, right?
Yeah, she already told you. Okay. Mrs. Smith, you can go. Is to introduce yourself, please.
Okay. Hi, I'm Pastor Smith. I'm the pastor of New Creations International Church. I also lead the Johnson County Interfaith. I wanted to speak to you today about the extension of the period that for a person, people can be out of housing. One of the issues that I see is that no person. It becomes it's a moral issue to me, because no person should have to ask permission to leave the country and then worry about having their housing in jeopardy. It is a modern day. In my eyes, it is punishing the people because of their poverty, and I don't have to ask to leave. I don't have to ask permission to leave my home, and I don't think that any. I think we ought to look at the and understand people's dignity, and make this a moral issue that no one should have to ask if they can leave the country and worry about losing their homes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I am Khalid Hasaballah. I'm so glad to stand in front of you and to speak English language for the first time in my life. I'm sorry for my broken English. I hope to understand my idea. I'm here to edit my voice for people who looking for 2 months instead of 1. And I want to invite you to visit our family in Sudan and to see by yourself how our parents to meet our kids. If you saw this is by yourself, I think you will give us 3 months instead of 2. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Another person. You can speak, Ayman. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, this is Ayman Sharif, and can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello?
I can hear well.
Yeah.
Yes, they can.
Okay, my name is Ayman Sharif, and I'm a resident of Iowa City. I would like to speak here regarding the issue of the absence of Section 8. I'd like to point to that. This issue is important, and I support and I urge your council to consider the absence time of 30 days and extend that, because the families benefiting from that, from the housing, are also the same people who benefit from having the trip outside or the absence more than 30 days. This is because of so many facts, including that those people are still having, many of them are still having connections with their country of origin, which is often very far away. It takes long trips. It takes a lot of cost. They spend a lot of time collecting and saving money to do this trip far away, and it doesn't make sense for them to return within the period assigned for them, which is the 30 days. So I really I would like your council, your commission, to reconsider this period of time into a more suitable period of time that can accommodate the very important needs of these groups of people who are using Section 8 service. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ayman. Yeah, I think anyone else want to speak? Because I think we're done. Unless I miss someone. Yeah, I think we're done. And thank you so much again for giving us the opportunity to stand before you and tell you our situation. Also, one thing I want to add, please, also, if you can, yes, the rules, use family instead of household, just like HUD rule will be good. Because in HUD, it just say like family. And I think the immediate family members will be also, if you can use like visiting immediate family member, which is your parent is part of the family. When you say household, that means somebody have to be sick from the household that they live here. Or if somebody died from the household that they live here. But if your mom died, she's not a household member. Anyway, I hope you consider those. Thank you so much again.
So what do we need to do, Matt? We need to make a recommendation.
Right. We need to make a recommendation, but we also need to decide what kind of recommendation it is we want to make or not make, depending on how the vote goes.
Well, I want to make a recommendation that we change the rule from, that the council adopt a revision of the policy, which 20 years old. Again, it's a policy that's been left behind. It should have been changed. I agree with what everybody said. And I think one thing, I do want to say one thing that I heard at the city council meeting the other night that I didn't hear here, but it could have been, I wasn't hearing as clearly as I could have, is that individuals often travel to, once they get to a location, they travel to different parts of the country yet within there. So parents here, parents there. Gosh, I know what it's like being a parent, wanting my kids to visit me. So it's clearly time to change this policy. And my recommendation is that we move it from the 30-day to the 60-day time period that people can be gone for a vacation.
So you're supportive of this 60-day recommendation?
Yep, that's my motion.
So do we want to, is that what we want to do? Because I'd be willing to go higher than 60 days myself. The question is, what kind of motion do we want to make?
What do you want to do?
Well, originally, when I first looked at this, I had the thought that Caleb had, which is that the immediate family language would be, because it would be preferable, because it's more targeted. It addresses the problem more effectively. But I think that the two of you are going to break your heads trying to figure out who's immediate family and who's not. Is the worry I have with that route.
I might be a little bit confused because, what we're talking about is, so the policy, HUD tells us we can define what brief is. Mm-hmm. Right now, the Housing Authority has defined brief as 30 days. So, but then it's if the entire household is out of the unit.
Right.
So that's what we're talking about with household.
Yeah, I understand that. What I was talking about
in
here
terms
is
of a parent, a grandparent,
right.
that yes, that is certainly a rationale for why somebody would want to be out of the the entire family to be out of the assisted household for 30 or 60 days because somebody over here is ill, who's a parent, a grandparent. So I think that's what we mean by household, is who's in the assisted household, whether all are going to be gone or just a portion. Then, if a parent is a parent, a grandparent is a grandparent.
I understand that. It's just that in the original letter, Mazahir laid out two possible routes for changing the administrative plan. One was the one we've been talking about here, changing from 30 to 60 days. And the other one was the one that Caleb mentioned that I think you supported, which was changing it so that visiting an immediate family member is a reason to go more than 30 days, right? That was the...
Yes.
Yeah, and I first read it, and I originally supported the change that Caleb supports. It's just I don't think we're going to be able to I don't think you are going to be able to decide on the basis of that. I don't think that's going to give you the right criteria you need. You're going to complain that it's not objective, I think, or that you have to spend too much time deciding the merits of individual cases, and so that's why I'm more supportive of the going from 30 days to 60 days route.
I don't want to put a whole bunch of rules on this stuff. Who made the comment? It's a poverty issue. Gosh, already got the rules. I don't want to add layers of regulations that, you can only travel on a Tuesday before 3 a.m. or let's make it easy enough for city staff to monitor or to approve it or to whatever they have to do, because basically it's a request would go in or a notification to Housing Authority then that, hey, I'm going to be gone 45 days and these are the dates that I'm traveling. As simple as that.
Yes.
That's how I make my vacation request. I used to tell the bot when I'm going to be gone. I don't understand why we have to get into what kind of family member we're going to go visit.
So is the current policy that the entire household can leave for 30 days?
Yes.
They don't have to say, can they say I'm going because we're going on vacation?
No.
They can't say that?
No, right now the policy would be if a family came in and said, whatever reason, we're going to be, the entire family's going to be out of the assisted unit from May 1st to May 31st.
Right.
We're going to say, okay, fine.
Okay, that's what I want to know. So,
Just in
okay.
order to maintain our compliance with the HUD regs, please let us know when you come back so we can document the file. So it would just be, we are requesting to be gone for 60 days, and here's the time frame. If the policy is changed, we say, okay, that's 60 days.
Okay, but if they come in and say, we want to be gone for 60 days and ask for your approval, can they say, we're just going on vacation? Do you have to have a reason why they have to be out for 60 days?
If the definition of brief becomes 60 versus 30, and a family comes in and says, just want to let you know, we're going to be gone for 60 days, then we would say, okay, fine, just let us know when you come back.
But I think, Mary Ann, you were asking about the current one, right?
The current is 30.
So yes, if
Just
it's
moving
over,
it from 30 to 60 days or longer
I think
if you
the-
want.
So,
but-
so now if somebody wants more than 30, then we're asking the why.
The why?
Right.
Yeah. Then the form asks, what's the purpose of the travel and and we can change our form. I think Tracy's looked at it and.
Oh, I'd change that. I mean, I think if you're going to give approval for somebody to be gone for 60 days, they don't need to tell you why.
No, it's just, we're going to be gone and it's going to be
And I'm
60
going on
days and we
vacation.
say, fine, just let us know when you come back.
The whole household.
The whole household. If it's just a family member, then it really doesn't affect this
Right, I
policy.
understand.
Right.
Because then,
Yeah.
then the unit's not vacant.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
what HUD is saying, if the entire household is
I
out of the
understand.
unit.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go baback to my motion. I'm going to move.
I want to say, okay,
Now, I mean, it can get amended, and I'm open to increasing it. If you want to go from 60 to 90 days, I'm open to that. But I want it to be at least 60 days. So I'm going to recommend that the council revise the Housing Authority's policy on
extended absences.
extended absences, thank you very much, from its current 30 days without rationale to 60 days.
And do we have a second?
I second the motion.
All right. Let's vote roll call, I think. We'll start with Becky.
Yes.
Nasser?
Yes. Yes.
Mary Ann?
no.
Caleb?
No.
And I will vote yes. So passes 3-2.
Does that, yeah, is that, I mean, do we have enough votes and we didn't have to,
We do.
we
need
just
fi-
had to have a majority, not any kind of super, okay, because
We-
we're low
we-
on members.
We
that's-
have 5 for quorum and
Okay,
majority
cool.
carries among members who are here.
Okay. I think all the speakers, I've learned a lot, and I appreciate you taking your time out to come and help us understand this issue.
I think that's all the council needs, right?
And since this came from our group, can you let us know what council meeting it's going to be on the agenda? Because I'd like to be there.
She already did.
Huh?
I think it's March
They're going
1st.
to do it on March 1st, and then they'll approve it the next meeting.
Okay,
Right,
because
isn't
I
that
do
what
want to
she
be
said?
there.
Is
All right,
March 1st a Tuesday?
We'll move on to item number 5, the Q&A session for the FY23 CDBG home applicants.
Hey, folks. I don't want, it's getting late, that's the problem.
Let's see what we've got.
So, Matt, what are we on? Are we doing the home?
We're on number 5. This is the Q&A
Okay.
session. I think we're just going to go directly to the Q&A, right? There's no staff presentation
Yeah.
at the start of this. All right, so we'll take the applications in order for each CDBG home applicant. We'll call out their name, and if they've sent an agency representative, they'll be welcome to step forward. So I have DVIP first on my list.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
So a couple of the applicants are applying for public facilities. So do we have $500,000 available for public facilities out of CDBG?
Yeah, CDBG could be public facilities or housing projects.
But, okay, thank you.
But on the DVIP one, okay, I don't have all my notes in front of me because I only got one screen, okay?
Becky, that's why I brought it.
Well, they're not eligible, they're not eligible for the home funds, correct?
Correct.
So, and refresh me, what is the pot of money we have available for CDBG?
There's $500,000 of CDBG and there's $450,000 of home. And
So-
both of those are still estimates because we don't have our actual funding allocation yet.
Okay, so the most that DVIP could get would be $500,000. Because
Correct.
they're not
Right,
eligible for the
right.
full pot. Okay,
And there's also one other applicant that's in that same pot, the free medical clinic, so.
yeah, but except they're a lot less.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I mean, the
So if-
DVIP one is
for example, free
$700,000, so it
medical clinic were-
exceeds
yeah.
what's available. That's what I wanted to
Right.
make clear.
Yeah, that's a particular jigsaw puzzle that always
Yeah.
happens, yeah.
Yeah, every month I learn a little bit more about how it all goes together.
Hi, Christy. I don't know who you're with, but
Hi, I'm Christy Dozer. I'm the Executive Director for the Domestic Violence Intervention Program, and this table is moving as I'm leaning on it. Ashley, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ashley Hopkins. I'm the Development Coordinator for DVIP, and I submitted the grant request.
Okay.
can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So, do you have a site picked out?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
In the application, it talks about the site that we've already purchased. We purchased it in 2000, I'm not going to get my dates right. Was it 2015 or 2016? In 2015, and we've been paying on the property and moving right ahead with it, so.
Did we get the full applications?
Yeah, the full application, it's posted online on the website.
Thank you.
Trying to, I went offline again, so. See, I'm just going to print up the copies next time because I can trust paper in front of me. When I was reading the staff summary, I have a general question that will answer a question I have about the DVAP application, and that is the funds leveraged. So if my memory serves me corrected, DVAP, is it, you have 80% of funds leveraged? Is that what's on there, Mary Ann?
I have to look.
But that means
looks like
that
it, yeah.
of the total cost of the project, much of those funds are not committed yet, right? So, and that's a concern I have. To be quite honest, in a project, a $6 million project, you've got about it looks like about $100,000 committed.
No, we have more than that.
You have more since the application. Okay, that, I'd love to get that information.
$830,000.
Pardon?
We have $830,000 committed right now.
$830,000 committed.
And we have another $900,000 pending in individual requests and then grant requests.
But in the application, you listed that I think it was around $3.3 million that you would be seeking in donations from the community.
That is correct. And so we are currently in the silent phase of the capital campaign. We're only 4 months into it. And so we're doing very well based on how far we are into it. But we do know that it's going to be about a 10 to 12 month capital campaign with a target date of breaking ground in the fall.
Fall of 2022?
Yes.
So, you know what I know. I've done capital campaigns before. $3.5 million is a huge amount of money for a nonprofit to raise in Iowa City without some sort of government grants, things like that. And what I'm really concerned about is your failure. And if you can't raise that much money, even raising $1 million in the community is not easy. You know that as well as I do. So what is your backup plan? Should you, not raise, $1 million or $2 million? What's your backup plan? Because I want to make sure that whatever money is approved through here isn't something that we lose because the project failed.
So, Brianna, if they are allocated CDBG funds for this, how long do they have from when they would be awarded, which would be what, in August?
July usually is when the fiscal year starts. Ideally, we like it, well, I guess we have the timeliness policy, so we require it to be spent within the fiscal year, so July through June.
So they have until next June to spend our money.
Right, but what I'm saying is the whole project. So,
right, I understand.
So I guess that's the biggest question that I have is, what if you fail in that? That $3.5 million is a lot of money to raise from individuals. I'm sorry, but in our community, because nonprofits get the leftovers, and there's not a lot of foundation money, there's not a lot of corporate money, so what is the backup plan? You must have thought about this in terms of assessing the risk of this, $6 million project.
So, Becky, I've known you for many, many years.
I know.
And I know that we joked about this when we did the 1105 project. I swore I would never do a capital campaign on my own. But what I will tell you is that we've been working on this for an extended period of time. For about the last 8 years, we've been working on this strategically. And we have relied heavily on professionals within the state of Iowa to assist us in evaluating whether or not this was a project that could be completed and whether or not the resources existed. And the proof is in what they were able to give us. The company that we worked with is Eden Plus out of Des Moines. And this is what they do. They evaluated our resources, they evaluated the community, they evaluated the potential fundraising, and supported this project and said we should be able to succeed without difficulty. And what I will say is that where we're at right now, 4 months into this, right, and what we have on the table, we're expecting to be at 2 million with the grants and the asks that we have out in the silent phase, within the next 2 months.
And that's commendable, truly commendable. And Chrissy's, we both worked on the 1105 project, and I've been very vocal about the problem with the lack of available capital money for nonprofits. Unless you get a HUD grant or something, it's very difficult to raise money.
Well, we are doing additional raising. In addition, we are working on grants in addition to the 4 million, because the project is a 6 million project.
And I recognize some of those. So, but I guess getting back to my question, because and granted, you've got a fundraising firm, or and a smart move, but even though they say it should be able to be done, you and I both know when we were in 1105, what we thought we could do, we didn't do. We fell short. We had to take a mortgage out. Is that, what's in your plans if you fall short significantly and it really means the project may not be completed because you don't have the money?
So in terms of our options, we do have options in related to a mortgage. We can certainly go that route. We can look at extending our process for how long it will take to pay it out, clearly. There isn't any question that the building that we're in right now cannot sustain at the level that it is currently at. So if all else failed, we would have to do renovations to that building at minimum to be able to maintain the current services that we have. We know that that's not enough. and we believe we have the community support to back this up. This wasn't an arbitrary thing. We're happy to share the research with you that Eden Plus did for us. They were, I will tell you that I was fully expecting them to come back with similar things that you had said, to be blunt, because I have worked in this community for a long time. They came back and they were actually surprised at the level of support that they were able to ferret out. They were surprised at the level of volunteer support that was coming through in just their research. And I'm not saying this to try and gloss over your question. I'm trying to say that we've done due diligence. We have really worked at this for the last 8 years to make sure that we're in the position to do it. We have collateral, we have a property that is paying for itself quite literally, and we have the resources and support in the community. And are we going to rely on grants for this as well? Absolutely, there's no question. But I wouldn't move forward if I didn't believe I had the right team to do it, the professional experience to match it and move us forward, and the resources in the community to do it. I will say that while the bulk of our fundraising is going to happen in Johnson County, clearly we do serve 8 counties, and our shelter serves 8 counties. And so our fundraising is happening in a much broader context, and a much broader context than just the community of Johnson County as a whole. We are working with some statewide and multi-statewide corporations. There's just a range of resources that we're looking at.
Okay.
I'm trying to be conscientious too about how I answer this, because we are in the silent phase of this. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No, and I have a lot of respect for DBIP, and I know you guys have been hit over the last several years with some really serious funding losses. And you guys have been around for a long time, but I was around when the current building was built. So
yeah,
I get you. But my question is, we have $500,000 to allocate, and you asked for $750,000. So just right there, how are you going to fill that gap?
We know that when we ask for a portion, that the likelihood that we're going to get the whole amount that we ask for in any grant application is not always based in reality. Reality is that you all are going to evaluate the efficacy of a project, you're going to evaluate the capacity of the project recipients, and you're going to evaluate your risk. And you only have a pool of money to work with. I'm going to ask for what we want and what I feel is going to be the most helpful for the project. If I get $400,000 from you folks, that means I'm going to find another resource. We have a whole cadre and plan for the entire campaign trajectory. And so when I say that we're going to find a way to fill that hole, we already have a plan for it, to be blunt.
Thanks.
You bet.
Do we have any other questions for DBIP?
Well, I was waiting for somebody else, but yeah, I do have an.
Yeah, I do have a question. So, are you willing to defer a project for a certain amount of period if you cannot make your goal?
It is something that we could look at, but bluntly, because of the support we have for not only in terms of our expectations around our goals for fundraising, we do also have support through the banking system and through mortgage possibilities. I mean, there's so many things you have to consider in how you put a project together. And one of the things we consider is how is it that the funding that we get, what's the best way to use that money in that moment? We're going to have restrictions on some of it based on grants such as this that we're going to have. In terms of the donations and the support that we get from the community, it really is about structuring the timing through that support. So could it be pushed back a little bit? Yes. Do I believe that's going to happen? I don't.
In your grant application, I would like to say, I'm doing this from memory, folks. in your grant application, I believe it was North Liberty that had committed to $25,000. Have you had any other commitments from local governments? Can you update any of that?
Not that I can say
Okay.
in a public fashion. What I can say is that we're aware of at least one similar donation that is potentially going to be voted on. But like I said, I
Okay.
because I
I
don't
get it.
have it in paper. I really
Yep.
can't do that.
Could you provide us, so I'm interested in the residential numbers of, because you do operate in 8 or 9 counties, right? I can't
8
remember.
counties total.
Okay. So I'm interested in taking a look at, maybe the past couple of years, what the numbers have been looking like. And I think that's my last question. I did have some questions about your capacity to expand or to double, but I'm assuming once this new facility were operational, then, you get additional money through grants and things like that.
Yes, but one of the things I will say is that part of our strategic planning process in getting to this point was expanding our development team and our development options within the organization. We have, Mary Ann was bringing up about recent cuts. I'll give you an example. There have been changes to, or should I say, let me start over. We have a particular grant that we get monies from for victims of crime. It's called the Victims of Crime Act. And it has a limit that was put on it many, many, many decades ago. And so it's been slowly dwindling, and the federal government hasn't dealt with it. So there was an automatic cut over the last 4 years because of that. In the last 2 years, those cuts did happen, but because of the work we've done around our engagement within the community and our engagement within all of our 8 counties, we sustained those cuts without any changes to our services, and we've actually expanded.
Good for you.
And so for us to be in that space, it was a planning process. It was a process that had to happen in order for us to believe that building this shelter is something that I'm willing to come out and say, hey, give us this money.
Do we have any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Thanks for putting up with me.
And next we have the Iowa City Free Medical Clinic.
So I have Barbara on Zoom, and hopefully it works okay.
So it looks like theirs is in 3 phases, and we're paying.
Let's check to see if Barbara is able to hear us. Right.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can, thank you.
So it looks like, Barbara, this is Becky Reedus. It looks like yours is done in phases, correct? And you are $340,000 for all phases, and you're asking for support for phase 2, and that's $75,000, correct?
That's correct.
She said correct,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Becky?
Yes.
Becky,
You're on the screen. I can actually see you.
did you and the other members of the commission receive my answers, my comments?
Well, I saw them but I didn't see them in the handouts. I saw a reference to them, but when I looked for them, I didn't see them.
They should be in the revised packet.
Okay, I sent those in case this Zoom didn't work, but I'll be glad to go over what I wrote with all of you.
I think it'd be helpful, Barbara, if you can.
Okay. Do you want to ask me specific questions, or would you like me to just run through how I responded to some of the comments and concerns?
Personally, I'm fine with you running through. If you will read what you sent in, that would be helpful for me. Yeah.
Okay. The free clinic did last receive a CDBG funding in 2012, And yes, while this is a three-phased and larger project to take place over the next several years, we will be working with a contractor, and I'm confident that even though it's larger, it can be completed successfully. In addition, one of the clinic's board members is the former executive director of Habitat for Humanity, and he has brought valued experience and expertise already and will continue to. I sent in a copy of the estimated budgeted costs for phase one. Most of the labor and supplies are being donated, so it's a very low cost. At this time, I do not have a written estimate for phase three. I'm working on that right now with what exactly we're going to do in the lower level. We have a plan right now. The plan is to move our ophthalmology clinic downstairs, our physical therapy clinics downstairs. We're going to have one administrative office downstairs, and we're also going to provide diabetic education downstairs. We are in the process of looking at the rooms downstairs and figuring out the best way to do that. But again, at this time, I don't have a written estimate. The architect I've been brainstorming with knows that we wanted below $200,000. As you know, I applied for this phase as a project on its own, and I did not think I needed more than one bid. This is my error. I contacted Hodge Construction, as the clinic has successfully worked with them in the past, but I have not signed a contract with Hodge Construction, and I can and will ask for at least 2 additional bids if required. I now understand, thanks to Brianna, that the project falls under the small purchase procedures. We will comply with Davis-Bacon. Another question was how many of our patients are Iowa City residents, and consistently between 55 and 60% of clinic patients are from Iowa City. As an example, in fiscal year 22, we served 1,222 patients, and of those, 703 were Iowa City residents. And finally, there was a question as to whether we could document the private funds we've raised already. I can say that we did a fundraiser last year to kick off our lower level project. We set a goal of $50,000 in honor of our 50th year of operation, and we met this goal through contributions from 112 donors. These funds will be utilized specifically for the lower level project. As far as the additional monies that are needed for phase 3, I am going to be applying for ARPA funding for the third phase from both the city of Iowa City and the county. I wanted to just clarify a couple other things, if you can give me one more minute. We are looking at this as a 3-phased project, which will take place over 3 years. Each phase is independent of the other. At the same time, each phase will build on the previous one and will progressively increase accessible space for patient care on the lower level. In phase 1, when it's completed, it will provide the means for us to have all our supplies in one area. Currently, clinic supplies are stored in 4 rooms downstairs on the lower level. Completion of phase 1 will immediately open up more space for services such as patient consultations, patient education, and physical therapy, but only for patients who are able to use our stairs that lead downstairs. Phase 2 will provide patient parking. This is the funding we're applying through CDBG for. Phase 2 will provide a patient parking area and a wide, safe new entryway on the east side of the lower level. This will provide the means for patients who cannot use the stairs to receive patient services right away. And then phase 3 will allow our staff and volunteers to provide more comprehensive services as sinks, new lighting and doors will be installed, and improvements will be made in air circulation and to the bathroom on the lower level. Thank you very much, and I'll answer any questions as best I can.
What questions do we have?
I don't have any.
I think you just answered all of mine.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't have a question either. Do anyone else? Thank you.
And I want to thank you all for allowing me to Zoom with you. I really appreciate it.
Next, I have listed Inside Out Reentry. I believe Michelle.
Hello.
So this is a really quick question that's mostly for Erica and Brianna. I think with the risk assessment here, this is the first time that you've done this.
Yeah, the cover sheets.
Yeah, and I appreciated the cover sheets and I learned from them, but I think that probably one thing in future years is that 4 to 10 might be a misleadingly wide range for that moderate risk category. Like I was just looking at it and really the reason that Inside Out ended up here was the first time application and the new scope and new size of a project and that was 5 points. But I think had you added a couple of extra things to that, had there been a fiduciary or capital issue or something like that was 3 points. Had you put that on there, that would have felt like an entire new universe of risk to me. I'm wondering if there's not like a 4 to 7 and versus 8 to 10, maybe being in different categories. I don't know exactly what those categories would be, but.
Are you talking about the staff, page 2 of it, where the staff risk assessment?
Right.
Yeah.
4 to 10 is just a vast range, and you could have, I think, an organization that's just kind of new and an organization that has a ton of problems ending up in the same category.
Well, for me, my issue was in that funds leveraged. It's more like a funds they hope to leverage. I take a look at, what money they've gotten committed so far versus the total cost of the project and what the likelihood is that they're going to be able to raise the risk. And then what's the backup plan if they can't, because best laid plans don't work out all the time. So, but I think overall this has been good for this. I think are you referencing the memo that was sent out about the 2 failed projects?
No, that's totally separate. I was just talking about the staff risk assessment.
Okay.
Though that's
Because there's not any issue with Inside Out, not, is this their first time that
Yes.
you've asked
Yeah,
for
this is our
CDBG
first
money,
time.
so
This is home.
this is home.
Yeah,
home
I
money.
raised it because Inside Out was in the moderate risk category, and also an organization that scored a 9 or a 10 on that rubric would be in that same category, and they would just be very different.
Well, yeah.
But I think that there's a question for Michelle in what you just said, and I think it's what the backup plan would be if the funds aren't leveraged, right?
Well, I have a couple of funding questions. One is, and again, this is on my memory because I can't get into I'm going to start all paper copies again. Quasi endowment. I think you're the one that referenced the quasi, and what is that, and what funds, make up that entity?
Sure. So we were, long story short, when the organization was founded, was basically kind of founded by a church, and when the church closed, we were gifted a quasi endowment through the community foundation.
I get it.
Yep. And so we have some funds committed through that for this project.
So there is an endowment. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Okay. So that answers that question. I guess the other question that I have is, do you have any private dollars going into this? I mean, have you done any kind of fundraising in addition? Because I didn't see, my recollection is I didn't see that in your application, that basically you had the endowment, the requests from here, but I'm not sure that I saw any private dollars. that
Sure. Yeah, we also have the grant/forgivable loan from the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County.
Okay.
And that's committed. We are still in that phase of that, sort of capital fundraising of securing more funds from private donors. Since we've done this application, we have received another kind of smaller gift of about $7,500. So we are still very actively in that phase of securing more funds.
Okay. And the Housing Trust Fund, was that a forgivable?
It's a forgivable
Okay.
loan. Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about private funding, are you talking at all about any kind of bank loan?
Yes, we have also spoke with our financial institution about, potential mortgage if we aren't able to raise the funds required.
And forgive me, but how big of a property are you looking for?
A 4 to 6 bedroom house.
Okay. So, is this new for Inside Out and reentry to become like a landlord?
Yes, this project is very new to us. We haven't done this yet.
And what's your capacity to, have maintenance done? Is that, and I'm sorry, I don't have the pro forma, but I'll look at that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I mean, tenant selection, leases,
sure,
property management, rent
Sure.
collection.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had, direct experience with that previously. We have administered for a few years with the Housing Trust Fund Johnson County rental assistance, so we have a lot of familiarity with sort of that, reviewing the financial income limits for folks to see if they're eligible for receiving the pass-through grant funding. We are currently, I know there was a question about sort of our staffing levels. We have actually very recently just secured funding to increase one of our staffing positions that was a part-time staff to a full-time staff. So we're going to be able to do that very soon here, hopefully, sort of increase that staffing, which will gain us some capacity and be able to take on some of these larger projects.
So once they would receive funds, what are the reporting responsibilities, the ongoing responsibilities? Because that's where at least one of the agencies in that memo got into trouble, is their ability to submit reports, or at least, work with the city on the reporting piece of it. So what would Inside Out have to do?
So there's quite a bit of monitoring that goes into a project. Like halfway through a project, we'll do monitoring to check financial records and those kind of things. Once the house is acquired, we would ask, once the property is leased up within that 6 months, they would fill out a report that says who's occupying each unit, and that's what gets sent to HUD. And then following that, each year, for all federally assisted units, anyone who gets federal funding has to report to us on an annual basis. So for the period of affordability, they would be reporting at least annually on their tenants.
Okay. So hearing that, and this being a new project and expansion for Inside Out, do you have the capacity to meet all of that?
Yeah, I feel pretty confidently that we do, especially since we're going to be doing some reporting for, our other grant funder. So yeah, I do think it's something that we'll be able to do, and I'm definitely be in conversations on how we can do it as, accurately and efficiently as possible as well.
I think my last question is this part of a strategic plan?
Yes, it's been a part of our plan for years now. And kind of prior to even getting this, we did a lot of touring of other sort of reentry houses that are available across the state, and kind of learned from them a little bit too, to try to figure out what would work. Obviously, Iowa City is quite a bit different than a lot of these other communities. But yeah, it's been really a long-term goal for us to get to this point.
How hard has it been to find permanent housing for your customers?
It's incredibly difficult, and I'd say it's actually gotten worse recently, just being able to find housing. Just a lot of landlords really being unwilling to rent to people and puts them in a really tenuous situation. So our real focus with this population in particular, is folks that are coming directly out of incarceration to really try to interrupt that pathway where a lot of times right where they're released, they're going to homelessness. And so being able to get that, now they have a rental, a landlord that they can use as a reference to find housing afterwards is our hope.
Well, I had the experience to go to the round table thing where you get a package and you say, you know, I was a convicted murderer, so I had to do all these things, and I just went back to jail. It was just too hard. I swear to God, I did.
Well, I mean, my thing is working in HR. You'd be surprised how few companies do it right in terms of looking at past criminal behavior and things like that. So it's unfortunate because it's hard to climb out of that hole when they keep taking the steps away. So it's tough. So it's a good project.
Thank you.
I have a question about the project affordability. The rent should be 500, but I'm not sure about the people who are coming from the jail that have that money. Do you have any grace period for the people until to get job and then they can afford to pay the rent?
Sure, and that's something we're kind of figuring out how that will work on the interim. But yeah, we're gonna figure out, you know, how folks, especially coming right out, if they don't have that, which is going to be somewhat likely, that sort of grace period before they're paying the full rent.
Also, I have another question. How do you get these people to get along? Because they are from different background, they are different age. How they can live together in just one house? Do you separate the rooms or?
Sure, yeah, and that's been a big conversation for us. We actually looked at some facilities where people are bunked together, and that was something we decided we weren't going to do. Folks are going to each have their own individual space, especially after long periods of incarceration, of being in close quarters with one another. Having your own private room where you can lock the door and no one can enter is really important to us, that we want people to have that individual bedroom space. We do plan on having, you know, staff, you know, checking in on the property regularly to see how folks are going. Some of the programmatic aspects of our property as well is helping folks with some of that peer component stuff, really sort of building some of those pro-social skills of, you know, how can we, you know, get through some of this conflict management in a way that's very different than maybe somebody had to do previously in the past. So it's something that we take really seriously. We want folks to get together and really form sort of a community. And we've seen some really successful examples of this. And so it's something that we've really are kind of building into sort of that program aspect of the housing as well.
Do we have any other questions?
I guess I have a brief question. I may just be ill-informed, but I was under the understanding that we weren't allowed to have more than 3 unrelated occupants per city code.
I didn't quite hear your question.
Right. I thought that we weren't allowed to have more than 3 unrelated occupants in a single family per city code.
I'm not sure the answer.
Yeah, I think that's gone.
Okay, that was my question.
I think we did. I think we did for some time have that regulation, but yeah, I think that was one of the.
Okay, any other questions?
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I think there were 2 or 3 other things I think got taken around the same time as well. Various zoning or things, or I don't remember what it was, but yeah, that was one of them.
I think didn't it emanate from there's some changes at the state or something, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
Yeah.
But I remember when it went away, so.
And our final application is the Housing Fellowship.
Hello. Good evening.
And what questions do we have for Simon?
Simon, no.
Oh.
I didn't have many questions for him. I guess the same question we ask you almost every single time. I believe this is for 2 houses, right?
Yep.
Larger bedroom size, which is something we've talked about in the past. And if you get less funding from us, it's possibly you might only do 1, but if you were to get less funding, I guess what would be your plan?
If we get less than the full request, first of all, like you said, we'd look at getting 1 house instead of 2 and just prorated it. This is basically the same application we submitted last time around, except for 2 houses instead of 1. If, say on that last application when it was only 1 home and we couldn't, scale that back, that got a little bit less than we had asked for. Our main interest is the amount that is forgivable at the end of the day. That's really what makes the difference for us. The more debt we take on for that property, the more that has to be reflected in the rent that we charge for that property. So in order to keep it at the $950 that we're projecting for these, that does require that it doesn't have the debt load that you typically would take on for a rental property like that. But then after that, we're just looking at size of the house, location or whatever, like trying to find a house that's less expensive on the market. But, that may result in a 2 to 3 bedroom house instead of, 3 or 4. And I think I said it last time, that's the biggest need we're seeing in applicants that we can't serve right now is larger families.
Right.
We have vacancies in our 1 and 2 bedroom units, but not in that 3 to 5 bedroom range.
Right. I think that is the only question I had.
Does anyone else have a question?
As a parent with kids, I know the importance of your project. I think we have a real issue with the bigger houses, 3 to 5 bedrooms in Iowa City. I have a lot of friends. They are desperately looking for this bigger housing, but they cannot find them. I see you in the application. You are utilizing only 7% for the non-CDBG funds. If you get less funding, how you overcome that short?
If we get less than full funding for this, we can explore using our line of credit or a private bank loan to try and fill that gap. In most cases, we do have enough cash on hand to fill that gap. I don't expect we're going to take out a private loan for the home that we were approved for in the last funding round here. But yeah, that's the main difference. If we have to take out a separate interest-bearing loan to complete the acquisition, then that just gets reflected in the rent payment from the family. Did I understand your question right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And any other questions?
That was the only question I had. I think we ask almost the same questions of him every time he's here, so.
All right, thank you, Simon.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Can you give me those numbers again, what we've got to play with?
There is $500,000 of CDBG and $450,000 of home estimated.
I'm sorry, what's the home?
450,000.
Okay. DBIP is not eligible for the home?
Yep.
And neither is free medical clinic?
Correct.
So they can both only come out of the $500,000 from CDBG?
Right.
Okay. And Inside Out and Housing Trust Fund, they can come from either pot, correct? Okay.
Housing Fellowship.
I'm sorry, Housing Fellowship. I'm just starting to really understand the differences, but obviously my mouth isn't getting it right, so I had it right up here.
And I think that concludes this topic, right? We're just next month's meeting, we'll make the funding decision.
Right.
Item number 6 has been deferred, and Brianna sent an email out to all of you as to why it was deferred, but basically I'm a member of the board of directors at one of the agencies, and we only have 5 people here, so I would recuse myself and you'd have 4, and you wouldn't be able to have the agenda item, because you need 5 for quorum. So I believe we'll just put that on next month's agenda, right? That's the plan.
Well, I'd like to communicate to the city council that I guess my reaction, or what I heard, and this is just my own, is that it wasn't a big deal that we get another. We could operate with the members that we have, but with this meeting we can't do some business, and
We cut it very close this meeting.
Kyle's not here either. So if Kyle had been here, would we have been able to review? So, we're really close to the edge, and I'd like to urge that we get some new members. And I know the problem is in getting applications, but I don't know. It's kind of frustrating that we're not able to do the work when we're supposed to. So.
Yeah. I mean, we cut it close last month, and we cut it a little too close this month. Number 7 is the council update. I actually have to take a mea culpa on this one. I think I just flat out forgot to ask for volunteers last time. So I'm going to make sure to ask for volunteers this month. I did review some of the recent council meetings. The main issue was actually item number 4 on our agenda. So that's been covered. The other issue was what Becky just said, that there was not an appointment of new HCDC members, and we still have 2 vacancies. So, we hope to see a new member.
And by the way, it's not unique to the Housing Commission either, so, but it's a problem if we can't get the business done.
And would anyone like to volunteer to review March meetings? Becky, I think you said earlier you're going to anyway, right?
I'm going to anyway. I do. You don't even have to watch them live, really. You can watch them afterwards. So, but yeah, I usually look at all the council meetings because, what else is there to do?
All right, there's a volunteer.
So we have Becky as our volunteer, and I've fulfilled our duties here on item number 7 rather than forgetting. For number 8, we have staff updates, which I think is going to be about the 2 agencies in the memo.
A little bit of that. I have a quick question for you, though. Just looking at the timeline, so the next meeting is March 24th. Our goal is to get you our staff recommendations for CDBG and home. When do you think you might be able to get your score sheets to us for us to put them together? I was thinking maybe, let's see, we could send you our sheets by February 28th, and maybe you could submit to us by March 11th. That would give you 3 whole weeks to score the applications. Does that seem reasonable?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll send that out in a reminder. And then I also wanted to ask.
Having the extra week before the next meeting helps too.
Yeah, that is kind of nice. For emerging aid to agencies, was the decision just to invite them to the next meeting?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I think we should go, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I had a question. Even though I was supportive of the change we made, for the housing authority, why did it come up at the last minute? I mean, I that's what I found, to be honest, a little bit annoying. That everything has to be changed, and it's 8:45, so it's a very long meeting for us. But why did that happen? I guess I have not seen that before, and just wondered why it came up in such an urgent way and why it had to be addressed so quickly, if that's been answered at all.
So the request for that policy change came from Center for Worker Justice. It didn't come from staff. And the urgency was that people are planning their travel right now for the summer. And so they were interested in the policy changing quickly so that people could plan ahead for their summer and book their tickets when it's more affordable. So I think council saw that urgency and wanted to act quickly.
Well, actually, I have another question kind of related to that. So I know Steve Rackus mentioned that the administrative plan was written in 2003, but doesn't the council approve the Housing Authority administrative plan every year?
We have an annual plan that is approved every year, but I don't, administrative plan, I believe, just goes to council when we have a change, a substantial change.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't. I thought it was reviewed every year.
But quite honest, I mean, it disrupted everything. It could have, I mean, if we had emergency agencies, we could be here till 9:30, a 3-hour meeting. And I get it. Part of me goes to, I mean, poor planning on somebody else's part shouldn't become, I mean, I just wish it came to us in a more timely manner. Because even there was a letter that came out late today. I didn't read it. I didn't have time to read it before the meeting. And that,
It's far from ideal. I mean, it's far from ideal to have to.
well, I think it's
rethink
really
the
far
meeting
from
in the
ideal.
last couple of days.
I don't think it should happen. And I'm sympathetic. I want to make those kinds of changes as we should. But I don't think we should be, changing everything at the last minute just, to accommodate something like that, it's got to be done in a little bit more systematic manner, I guess. I just thought the whole thing was kind of bizarre. That was just like, oops, we got to add all of this, so everything's going to change. So,
But that did come from the council.
well, I understand it, but nothing else goes through that fast. So that's why I'm just, council can ask us something, but, why couldn't they have waited a month? Right?
Right, yeah.
To get on the calendar. I mean, we already had an agenda that was set.
Right.
So I understand why we had to modify our agenda to add that so quickly. And that would be just the one thing. I hope that doesn't happen again, so.
Did you have anything else with the staff update?
I think that's all of my items, if you want to talk about your memo.
Sure. Caleb, your question earlier, the 3 unrelated people for occupancy changed in January 2018 due to state legislator. I just looked it up and it was prior to my time, so I just wanted to.
Yeah, I thought it had something to do with the state legislation, right?
Yes.
Yep.
The state went on its sort of, we don't like Iowa City kick, and I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably around the time that they did away with the minimum wage, couldn't do different minimum wage. I have a question about the report that you sent out, which I thought was very helpful. Thank you, about the 2 agencies. I just have a question about why those monies have to be sent back to the feds. And is that because of the length of time at which they were awarded?
No, that's because they were in default of the agreement and they didn't complete the project as proposed. So it has to, doesn't go back to Iowa City, it goes to HUD.
Okay. That's a shame. It's a couple $100,000 that could fund some good projects, so.
Well, but I also think that it gives us sort of, as a commission, some good information about what decisions that we make. Because if people are allocated money, projects, and they don't have the capacity to complete them, a lot of times it falls on the staff to sort of, push them along and educate them. And then this is what happens, and it has to go back to HUD instead of us being able to use it in our community.
Yes.
So I think it really behooves us to make sure that we are making really good funding decisions.
I agree. But thank you, that was good information to get. I appreciated that.
I would also note we're looking on our end too how we can look at that, like maybe do monitoring on the front end of a project rather than, in the middle or closeout before we fully commit those funds. And, other things we can do at orientation for new subrecipients. So we're also looking into how we can kind of work on that as we move forward.
Okay. Do you need a motion?
Well, we'll move on to number 9.
Is that adjournment?
Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
I'm fading fast.
Yeah, thank you everyone for showing up tonight.